we can champion free speech and champion debate, and also not provide a space for people that aren't willing to be accepting of people's identities or people's race or ethnicity, or kind of very clear about not allowing people to place certain values or hierarchies around kind of ethnicities and genders and things of that nature.
Well, joining me now is George Abaraonye. He was very much in the headlines. He was the president-elect of the Oxford Union, who was subsequently ousted after he issued a response online to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. George is a 20-year-old politics and philosophy and economics student, PPE student at Oxford Union, and what sparked the controversy was a message online saying Charlie Kirk got shot, let's effing go. And George joins me now. I mean, should be said, you absolutely regret that.
Yeah, of course, and I've been unequivocal and very clear in the fact that, made a mistake, and I've been very upfront about owning up to that, that the reaction wasn't befitting of the situation, and I should have been more considerate in kind of how I reacted and kind of the political moment we were in.
Charlie Kirk was someone who you'd met, who
yeah, of course.
You debated. What did you think of him?
Well, I think he was an interesting person. I disagreed with him, in many different aspects, as a political kind of commentator. It's why I debated him, actually, because I thought someone of Charlie Kirk's, stature is someone that should be debated and can't be ignored, because, he has impact on policy, he has impact on real people's lives. And I thought, the ideas that he kind of brought about and the rhetoric he espoused is something that should be challenged, because ultimately I thought, some of the policy he advocated for and some of the kind of ideas that he was putting in the political atmosphere kind of brought real harm onto real people.
In what way? I mean, do you think he was a racist?
Well, I think there was some commentary of his that, definitely was perpetuating harmful stereotypes towards black people. I think this is someone that, said that the Civil Rights Act, was a mistake. And I think we can be, I think, very clear in understanding that, Mr. Kirk was someone that at times his rhetoric caused real harm to the black community. They perpetuated stereotypes that were harmful, when he talks about how he would be worried if there were black pilots. These are things that cause real harm to people, and I think we can be very fair and upfront and frank about that, even despite the tragic circumstances around his death.
Had you become president of the Oxford Union, as I understand it, the main task is actually deciding who gets invited and who debate. Would you have invited someone like Charlie Kirk?
So actually, it's quite interesting. We kind of had this discussion when he was being invited, because I was part of a committee at that point, and I was of the opinion that someone like Charlie Kirk actually should be invited and should be debated, because someone, like I said, of his platform, this is someone that had direct connections to the GOP. This is someone that had direct connections to kind of policymakers. And like I said, he had a real impact on people's lives, and the rhetoric and the debate that he had impacted policy decisions that would then go on to harm people. And so this is absolutely someone that I think should have been debated, because I also think, as someone who used the forum of debate to kind of spread his messaging, the only way to, I think, correctly challenge him was through the method of debate, and to disprove the arguments that he made and to disprove some of his rhetoric.
And do you sympathise with the person who shot him at all?
No, why would I sympathise with the person who...
Well, the reason why I ask, I'm not accusing you, I'm asking,
of course,
is that some people have sort of said, oh, well, what do you expect? Typical cancel culture. They don't like anyone who disagrees with them. And it seems to me that, well, I don't know whether you feel, but I certainly don't feel that quite describes your situation.
No, absolutely not. I mean, if I had that much contempt for the man, I wouldn't have debated him. I disagreed with him. I thought his views were harmful. I thought he was someone that should be challenged. But I also, and I want to be very clear, he did not deserve to die. I don't think anyone deserves to die for the political opinions they hold. And I don't think someone should be a victim of political violence because of the political opinions they hold. And, we can be very clear about that and still, talk about the legacy and the impact that someone like Charlie Kirk had and other, right-wing provocateurs have.
What do you feel about cancel culture, about excluding people from debate because their views are considered to be unacceptable?
I think there's an important distinction to be made. I don't think the idea of cancellation is a productive one in general, because I think oftentimes you see those who become cancelled or those who are cancelled per se oftentimes just end up more rooted in their ideas and more rooted in kind of the ideology that got them cancelled. But I think we can be very clear and make a distinction between what is free speech and advocating for free speech, and even things that might be, say, controversial to say, but don't call into question someone's dignity or someone's personhood. And, there are very clear kind of lines within British law about what is free speech and what is hate speech. And I'm of the view that we can champion free speech and champion debate, and also not provide a space for people that aren't willing to be accepting of people's identities or people's race or ethnicity, or kind of very clear about not allowing people to place certain values or hierarchies around kind of ethnicities and genders and things of that nature.
Now, you got sacked as the president-elect. Do you think that was appropriate in the circumstances?
Appropriate in what sense?
Well, do you think it was fair enough that you'd made a mistake, you admit you made a mistake? Was it fair enough to dispense with you as the chairman?
Well, I think ultimately it was a member's decision. I was of the opinion that, the Oxford Union is a space for debate. It's a student society, and as a result is a space to also make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, in the same way university is a space to make mistakes and learn from them. And I was of the opinion that what better way to learn from that mistake than to be able to engage with those who disagreed with me, engage with those who thought, I made a mistake or I said something wrong, and be able to actually debate them and challenge them and learn something from that debate. And so I was of the opinion that absolutely I could stay in post and I could stay in that position and learn from that mistake, and actually it would make me a better leader and a better president, and it would make me a more holistic person. But obviously the members came to the decision they came to, and while I'm gutted and disappointed that they did, I respect the members' decision.
I mean, there were supporters of you who suggested that process, the vote to oust you, was illegitimate. I mean, do you share those views? I
mean, we have concerns with the way the vote was administered. It's partly why an appeal was put forward. There were procedural irregularities and some concerns we had with the way the vote was administered. And ultimately, regardless of the result, I think we wanted a safe poll, because it's not fair to the members. It's not fair to the members to have weeks of questioning around who will be their next president. It's not fair to the members that, they come down to vote, or they voted in however they did, and that, that result is then put into question, or there is some doubt casted onto that. And I wanted to be, very clear in kind of having a finality towards whatever decision was come to.
But you accept it now?
Well, I mean, of course I have to. The appeal kind of happened, and, until such time as a kind of report is produced, like, I'm very much,
And there was comment in some media saying that, you were only at Oxford because of positive discrimination, you didn't have the A levels and all the rest of it.
Sure.
What's your answer to that?
Well, I think it's a very kind of dishonest way to talk about the admission system at Oxford. If I'm able to kind of elaborate.
I went there and I got way worse A levels than you got.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, it's a very dishonest way to talk about the admission system, because Oxford doesn't consider race in its admission system. It has a three-pronged system where it considers your A-level grades, it considers, an aptitude test that is administered by Oxford, and an interview process. And obviously, Oxford weighs its own admission system quite highly. And even when looking at your A-level grades, they consider the context, they consider your income, your background, your relative attainment compared to, students around you. So, I don't think it's fair to kind of throw these DEI higher allegations at me. I think they're rooted.
Well, they're just not true.
Yeah, they're just not true. And I think they're rooted in something very different and quite sinister. And I think we can be quite honest and frank about that.
And could you stand again now to be the president?
It's currently unclear. It's currently unclear.
Well, would you if you could?
Would I if I could? I think there are more ways to kind of have an impact within the Oxford Union outside of simply being the president. And I think, that's a decision for perhaps future me to make when I've kind of recovered and fully kind of come to terms with everything that's gone on and decided, where I fully stand within the Oxford Union. But I mean, let it be clear, like, even if I'm not the president of the Oxford Union, I will still be someone that, wants to have an impact within that place, wants to be able to kind of foster positive debate and positive discussion within that space, regardless of whether or not I'm the president.
Got someone messaging saying that he doesn't think you've issued a full apology. Looking back, would you do it again, or
would I react like that again? Absolutely not. I think, to say I haven't issued a full apology, I think is also, again, slightly disingenuous, given that, not only did I delete my comments before kind of any of the press storm and apologize on my own Instagram and my own social medias, recognizing that, I had made a mistake and reflecting on the fact that that wasn't the way to react at the time, and that, we should be looking towards empathy in our politics and looking towards kind of positive discussion instead of increasing the polarization within our politics, because it creates these climates of violence. I've then also apologized subsequently after the press storm, and Times quite literally reported yesterday another apology I've given. So I don't think it's fair or disingenuous to say that I haven't apologized, and I don't think it's fair to constantly expect me to keep apologizing.
Have you had any contact with people associated with Charlie Kirk at all?
No.
You written to his wife or his widow or whatever?
I haven't had any contact with.
Right. Okay. Now, a lot of people who are associated with the Oxford Union go on to a career in politics, particularly people who study PPE like you.
Yes.
Is that on your agenda?
Well, I think as of right now, the focus is definitely just finishing that degree. I am someone that cares deeply about the community and the people around me, and I want to be able to have a positive impact on those around me, be that through debate, be that through discussion, be that through community work, or whatever I think kind of suits my skill set best. But, right now I'm just concerned about finishing that degree, getting my first, and, whatever opportunities come from that.
I mean, are you a politically active member of a party or anything like that?
Currently, no, not a member of the political parties. I think British politics is in a very kind of interesting phase right now. It's transitioning between, what was historically, I think, been a very kind of two-party dominated system to also, I think, you could almost kind of resemble a very representative system of like many different political parties across the spectrum. And I'm just quite interested more generally in kind of where we're going and the political direction of the different parties and kind of who will succeed and who won't.
And what do you think of the state of the country?
I think much can be said about it. I think it's clear that, people are very scared, people are worried. The cost of living crisis is real and it's hurting people and it's affecting people. And I think it's why we're seeing kind of such strong reactions. I think it's why we're seeing, the Reform Party kind of surge so much, because they're able to capitalize on that fear and use that fear to kind of, start to spread harmful narratives around blaming certain groups of people, when I think there are more productive ways to go about our discourse, and there are also more productive ways to, I think, solve the issues of the country. I think, one party that I've been very impressed by is the Greens, and, their kind of politics of hope, and this idea that, instead of stoking division within
perhaps not great
society,
on the economics aspect of your degree.
Perhaps not, but, I also think oftentimes the economic scrutiny that is placed on left and leftist parties, I think, is perhaps done in bad faith or disingenuous. And I think that oftentimes, we don't give perhaps left-wing parties the breadth of being able to fully enact their policy.
And you've apologised. Someone saying they'd be interested in your views on what Nigel Farage said when he was at school, or how he behaved.
Look, if he said the things that he said and the allegations that were made against him, I think he should be very, very upfront about them and frank about them, that he should be willing to accept that, look, like, he said those things, and if he's willing to show that he has actively made change or improved himself, then he should be very comfortable in that. In the same way, I can be very upfront about the fact that I made a mistake and then, look to put in real work to show that, I've actually learned from this. Farage should be very unequivocal in the same way. He should be able to accept that if this is something that's true, that's happened, that he should be very upfront about that. And otherwise, he should be able to show that he's actually grown and he perhaps doesn't still hold these ideas. And if he is so, unwilling to, even accept the truth around some of these allegations, or if he's even, unwilling to be so upfront about the fact that he made this mistake and he learned from it, then...
George, thank you very much indeed. That is all from me for this week. Join us again next week.